Hi, Paola. You're a friend of Bobby, right? I saw you you commented on Bobby's video of me. We were performing, and I was performing, and figured I'd add you. I gotta get a new screen. I gotta get a new tablet. I cracked it pretty bad, so I'm probably gonna. Excuse me. Probably gonna take this in tomorrow. They're probably gonna have to send it back, and it's going to take a few weeks, so I figure I'd come on here and share a story. I don't know if anybody wants to hear a story. I don't feel too good. I just, like, I don't know, I think, like, food has, like, wrecked my life. I don't know, because, like, I feel like all this junk food is making me, like, fat. And because it's making me fat, I think what's happening is, I noticed when I looked at Bobby's video, like, and even though it was on the spot and I've been tired, and I wasn't fully the Jolly Cat, I just feel like that's not how I see the Jolly Cat looking. Like, I feel like, it sounds weird, but I feel like the fatter I get, the more crazy I look, and just, I don't know how to explain it, but like, and I feel like the Jolly Cat, he's supposed to be like childlike and kind of wacky, and I feel like, I saw the video of Bobby posted, and I'm like, yo, like, I'm getting too fat, like, I gotta stop eating so much, like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like not easy because, like, yo, I've been like working out like hardcore at the Taekwondo 3 days a week, but I guess it's not enough because I'm eating so much, you know? Yeah, I feel like the answer for me, I don't even know if I could ever do it, is to just like eat vegetables, maybe fish, and just continue to Taekwondo. And maybe add another couple days of working out, and like take like 6 months to a year and just like totally focus to like the spring or next summer. And then I feel like then the Jolly Cat would be that much more respected. Because you look at like Jerry Lewis, you look at like Chaplin. Sure, you got people like Chris Farley, and they use being heavy to help them. But, like, to me, my style of comedy, I don't need to be heavy. You know, the Jolly Cat, when he makes people laugh, I don't think it's because he's fat. I'm not saying it can't help, but I feel like it's the essence of the character, the joyfulness. I think in what I'm doing, it actually takes away, because I look ugly when I'm fat, and I look stupid when I'm not. I mean, you know what I mean? Like my eyes get like droopy. You know, my face gets all fat, and then my belly's all big, and I think that like it takes away from the essence of the character. I don't know how to explain it, but I just feel like I've got to like get in crazy shape. But you know something? It's easier said than done. I got so many battles going on. I just don't know. I don't know if I can do it. You know? But like, I just feel like I just feel too overwhelmed. I feel alone, nervous. I even get scared. It's tough. You know, imagine you feel like you're all alone in the world. Imagine you feel like you're trying to be an entertainer and you love making people laugh. And you're around amongst a lot of people every day. And sometimes you do great and sometimes you don't. But really, you don't feel like, I don't know. Just don't feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like I belong here, you know? I feel like it's a losing battle every day, you know? But, one day goes to the next, and it's like, and this is not what I hoped for. I thought that by now I'd be like performing every night, you know, all the time. But as you guys know, I hadn't even been street performing that much. It's just, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, guys. It's just overwhelming, and I don't know. Like I'm getting like, you know, just, I don't know. You know what I mean? It's just tough, guys. It's just tough, you know. So. You guys want to hear a story? You guys want to hear a story? I hear you, Fatima. I hear you. Keep on doing your thing. That's great. I'm proud of you. You're doing great. You're working hard. You're working out. You know, you're a good friend. I really support you and I appreciate you. Thank you. That's encouraging. I'll definitely try to be inspired by that. But for me, my career, my Jolly Cat, my comedy is like, you know, oh, Paola, I've been performing for 15 years. You must be new. Yeah, you're new to the site. You're new here. I started doing comedy and acting, well, comedy more, in 2001 as Vinny A.O. I was like a teenager. And, you know, so yeah, I've been at this for like 15 years. So, you know, what can I tell you? You know, when I first started as Vinny A.O., you know, oh, it was great, you know. Actually, I'll tell you something. That's the story I want to talk about. All right, so you guys picked the story. What story do you guys want to hear about? You guys want to hear about the Chuck Norris story? You want to hear about the Harvey Keitel story? You want to hear about... Man, I have a lot of stories. I mean, you tell me. What story you guys want to hear about? All right. You guys want to hear about the Chuck Norris story? I think many of you on here already know the Chuck Norris story. But there's only 8 people watching, so... It's not like, you know, there's a good chance some of you don't know the Chuck Norris story. You guys want to hear the Chuck Norris story? Hello? Hello? Wow. That's crazy. All right, I'm just gonna tell the Chuck Norris story. So, to those that already heard the story, they're probably gonna get off here. Maybe that's why a few just left. They're like, "Oh God, like we already heard this story 10 times, 20 times." But to those of you that are just getting on here, can you guys hear me? Okay. Hold on. I'm in the Sheraton Hotel right now. There's a lot of noise here, guys. No, not the Sheraton. Yeah, I'm at the Sheraton. I'm at the Sheraton Hotel. Hold on. There's a lot of people in the background here. Let me get my headphones on. Give me a second, guys. Let me get the headphones. You guys hear me well? Okay, I'm going to share the Chuck Norris story, guys. You know what I should have posted this as? It would have got way more viewers. I should have said, come see the Chuck Norris story. I guarantee you I would have got like at least 20, 30 people right now. Not that much more, but I'd probably get a few more. If I would have wrote in the section, instead of wants to hear a story, I'm telling you. But a lot of people already know about my story with Chuck Norris. Hold on. 1 second. Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear me? So I can't hear you guys. So when I say hello, that's like I'm expecting to hear like a voice or something, but there's no voice. I just hear typing. All right, I'll share both stories tonight. I'll share the Chuck Norris story, and I'll share the Harvey Keitel story. And I know there's another cool story. I'm just not thinking of it. I mean, there's the AGT Los Angeles story, but I don't even want to get into that. But just let me know, guys. Can you guys hear me? Just someone, if you guys can hear me, someone give me a heck yeah. So if you guys can hear me, give me a heck, say yeah. Dude, could someone let me know if they could hear me right now? Because I got these headphones on, you know? I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. I want to make sure I'm not like miming, because it went down to 6 people from 13. So I don't know if that's because people are just tired of hearing me talk about stories, or you can't hear me. Okay, so Piola's saying yup. So the good news is you guys can hear me. The bad news is that a bunch of people just left. All right, so let's get started. No problem. Okay. So, story of my life, right? There you go. There you go. So, all right. So once upon a time, I had 13 viewers on a lame Sunday evening, and 13 viewers wasn't even a lot. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a bunch of people took off, and it went down to 5. And then on this lame Sunday evening, as I was about to tell my Chuck Norris story, it went back up to 9. And once upon a time, on this Sunday evening, about to tell my Chuck Norris story, what started at 13, went down to 5, went up to 9, went down to 7 viewers. Once upon a time. All right, I'm not going to pay attention to that. Okay, no problem. All right, so once upon a time, I hate saying once upon a time. Don't you feel like when someone says once upon a time, they're about to make something up? Like once upon a time, you know, like that's just how I am. I like to make it once upon a time, you know? So, because, it actually was once upon a time, right? So anyway, once upon a time, I was doing comedy every night in Times Square. And I was, at the time, living out my dream. And that was back in the day. I don't know how many of you guys knew me back then. Perhaps a few people on here may have knew me. I was Vinny A.O. Vinny A.O. A.O. Oh. I did a lot of character comedy even back then, but it was more like I used to make fun of myself, my family, and I did a lot of animated stuff. I was always animated, but it was like a character, Vinny A.O. I don't know how many of you guys remember the Vinny A.O. days. Excuse me. This is really discouraging, man. This is really discouraging. I mean, again, 13 people wasn't a lot, but who the hell wants to go from 13 viewers down to 6? And that's, man, I can't even tell my own story with this crap. I can't. Again, I know 13 is not a lot, but it's like, aren't your viewers supposed to rise as you stay on? Like, I watch some people, and like, they come on live, and the more they talk, the more they do things, the more people come and see them. For me, it's not the same. Okay, so I'll just continue. It's no problem. So they give you a little bit of a, see, like, and then it's psychological. Because then as you're telling the story, you're thinking, nobody wants to hear about the story. You're going to start telling the story, and people are going to leave. And then to confirm your suspicion, boom, down to 7. Boom, down to 5. And then you're like, well, wait a minute. I can't continue the story. Nobody wants to stay. You know what I mean? So, like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Crazy. I got to, like, this thing is cracked. You know what I mean? So, anyway, so what happened was, back in the day, yeah, but Paola, you're new to the site. I complain a lot. A lot of people know that. I complain a lot about how I feel that I should have thousands of viewers on here because all around Brooklyn and beyond, people know the Jolly Cat. People know my work. They love the Jolly Cat. They stop me. They want to see shows. And yet I come on here and, like, even my Jolly Cat page, I only have, like, 700 likes. Like, I hear you, though. All right, so, guys, I'm sorry. This is not working out. I'm getting sidetracked. I just can't handle, like... I'm sorry, guys. I can't handle it. Now it's down to 5, then it's up to 6. So evidently it's not going to go back up to 13. You whoever's on here, you can see what I'm seeing. It went from like 13 down to 12, up to 13, down to 11, up to 14. Now it's fluctuating between 6 and like 5. It's like my weight. I used to be somewhat fat, and I used to, like, you know, my weight used to fluctuate. My weight used to fluctuate between, like, chubby and fat for, like, a couple years. But now I'm just fluctuating between fat and, like, obese. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it started, like, going between 13 and, like, 10. Now it's, like, between 8 and, like, 5. All right, whatever, guys. I'm going to keep on going. So, once upon a time... why don't you like Vinny? Yesterday was a big space. We said it fresh. Say what's up to me, bro. What's up? What's up, bro? What's up, Daquan? How you doing? I got a cracked screen. I could barely read what you guys are saying sometimes. All right, so back to the Chuck Norris story. So once upon a time, I was Vinny A.O. and I created this character. And I decided that, you know, I was going to take it to the clubs. I took it to the clubs. Within a few months, 6 months, I was performing in the clubs, from the open mics to showcases, shows. And this one club called Ha Comedy Club, actually right here in Times Square, Ha Comedy Club, H-A, Ha Comedy Club. Now it's called Lots of Laughs. But anyway, Ha, like Ha. Very clever, huh? Ha Comedy Club. So Ha Comedy Club, they had this thing where they would let, if they thought open micers were good, they'd watch you, kind of like audition for them. And if they thought you were good, they'd let you be a barker for them. And a barker was very exciting for me at the time, which is kind of weird because I was a barker and now I'm the Jolly Cat. But anyway, so being a barker was like a big deal because it was a legit comedy club. So what being a barker meant was they're not going to pay you like $50 a show, or like you're not going to be like a paid per se headline act in the comedy club, but they'd have a few barkers that they'd put on for 7 minutes in between the show. It was a professional show, don't get me wrong, that's why it was awesome. and I auditioned, I passed, I got into the club as a barker, and I remember it was so exciting. I loved every minute of it. Oh, forget about it. I loved every minute of it. At the time, it was my dream. I mean, I was living my dream. I didn't know God. I was dead in spirit. It's another story. But according to what I knew, I was living my dream. I mean, I was in Times Square. I was amongst people. I was making everybody laugh. I was promoting the club, because what barking means, for those of you guys that don't know what barking means, a barker for a comedy club, in other words, if you go and get people in, they let you perform. So you have to go and tell people, come to the comedy show, and then if you do that, then you get to perform at the show. So pretty much I'd go to Times Square every day. I'd bark my butt off. It was fun, though. It was fun. And then not only do you get to perform, but they'd even pay you. So in other words, the cool part was, it was like I was making money barking, right? And I wasn't like I was doing it for the money. I was doing it for the stage time. But you'd make money. You'd get a couple bucks for each person you bring in off the street. So you figure, for me at the time, I was 19, 20 years old. I was living with my dad. That's a whole nother story. I really didn't need much money. I was living my dream. I was performing in the comedy club every night. So maybe I made 20 bucks a night, 25 bucks a night. That was good for me. I'm performing 5 times a night. I remember I'd perform the 7 o'clock show, go out 7:30, bark till 8, perform, go bark, come back at 9, go perform, go bark, you know what I mean? And anyway, so I was living my dream, you know? And who knows where it would have went from there, because I was performing, you got to figure, in this comedy club at Ha Comedy Club. Francisco was the booker back then. Man, I was performing like 5 times a night, like 5 shows a night. It was great, like 5-6 days a week. So it was great experience, real crowds, real people. You know what I mean? Every day. Man, so this went on a good 6 months, a year. And one night, I lived in Brooklyn, always lived in Brooklyn. I was taking the D train from Bensonhurst, where I live, to the comedy club, you know, Times Square. And on the way to the comedy club, I'm on the D train. And back then, sometimes what I used to do is I used to perform on the train, not like I do now, like full-fledged street performance. That's another story. But I was sort of known like for doing like stoop shows and little park shows, and you know, actually it's a whole nother story I won't get into. But that was like before I started doing comedy in the clubs. I actually was called Crazy Vinny in my neighborhood, but I don't want to get into too many stories tonight. Sometimes that happens. I'll tell one story, then I'll go into another story, and then before you know it, there's no real story. But the point is that I wasn't like street performing, but I remember on the way to the comedy club, I used to do Vinny on the train, and I felt if I can make people laugh on the train, when I get to the comedy club, you know, what's the big deal? You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can make New Yorkers laugh on the train, once you get to the comedy club, the people are drunk anyway, yada, yada, yada. Plus, I love performing, you know what I mean? So, one day I'm on the D train, and I start doing my Vinny act, you know, and I'm not going to get into the act per se. It's not what I do anymore, but it was, you know, I was doing my act, you know, and Vinny I used to do this thing about my father, that he used to take the light bulbs and hide them, and then he'd come back, where are the light bulbs? And I don't want to yell him in this place, but anyway. And so anyway, I did this on the train one day. I was on the way to Ha Comedy Club, and while I'm performing on the D train, who's on the train watching me perform, laughing? Actually, I forgot to say that part. There's people around. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little distracted, guys. And I'm also getting distracted because as I'm telling the story, like 5 people just left. This live thing is hard, man. I'm going to send this thing back tomorrow. My screen is cracked. I'm giving a rest for 2 weeks. This live stuff is hard, man. I hate to pause it. I'm over here telling a story. It's like, oh, yeah, we're back up to 13 again. People want to hear the story. And then in the middle, you telling the story, back down to 6. Like, how are you supposed to continue? Like, what the hell? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I know a lot of you heard the story already, but it's like, how discouraging is that? Like, I'm over here like telling a story, and it's like it goes from like 13 down to 6, like nothing. Like, what if? Oh God, I'm sorry, guys. I just maybe you guys are better with this. I'm just not. Forgive me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really trying here. I'm trying to not focus on the viewers and just tell the story, but it's tough, man. So I'm on the train and I'm performing. I'm doing my Vinny A.O. bit. People are laughing. It was a pretty decent show on the train. I was on the way to the comedy club. And all of a sudden I look, and who's on the train? Chuck Norris. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Chuck Norris is on the D train? At first, because there's Brighton Beach over there, I'm thinking, that's gotta be a Russian guy from Brighton Beach, because I never forget. I remember at the time, he had a beard. He had like that red beard. And I didn't know who it was at the time. His bodyguard, Howard Jackson, is right next to him, which I found out later. And then his wife and the daughter, I think Christy, whatever her name is, the blonde wife. And I'm looking at them like, this can't really be Chuck Norris on the D train. And then I look closely and I could see it's really him. So before I could even say, is that Chuck Norris? They go, and they go, no, I'm sorry, they didn't do that. I'm sorry. What they did was they redirected the attention. They said, Vinny A.O. They said, Vinny A.O., look at Vinny A.O. You're Vinny A.O. So in other words, what they did was, instead of me making a big deal about them, they redirected it. That's what happened. And they said, oh, Vinny A.O., right? You're Vinny A.O. We love it, Vinny A.O. So I kind of took the hint. You know what I'm trying to say? I hope this makes sense. Instead of making a big deal that I'm meeting Chuck Norris and them, they said, oh, look, you're Vinny A.O. And I just continued with the Vinny A.O. act. You understand? But I knew, obviously, this is Chuck Norris. This is, and so I continued the show. And when I was done, it was really surreal. I went up to them, and I'm going to Times Square. It turned out they were coming from Coney Island. I guess it makes sense. I mean, it's a little crazy, but I mean, imagine you become a celebrity, and he was already kind of out of the limelight, I guess, for the most part. He's kind of like a humble guy. He's not a flashy guy, and he has the beard. I guess they wanted to be like real people, and they wanted to take a train and go to Coney Island and have the New York experience, have a hot dog. The guy knows how to fight. He had the bodyguard there, so I guess it made sense. They're coming from, well, in a way it doesn't make sense, but that's what happened. And they were coming from Coney Island, and we started talking. They said, we like what we saw. You're very funny. I didn't understand what they meant, but they said that I reminded them of Don Rickles. I mean, I looked up Don Rickles later, and I don't see the correlation. I was never a put-down comic. Maybe there was something about the way I was doing Vinny A.O., I'm not sure. I mean, this is years ago, I don't know. So they were making comments like, you remind us of Don Rickles, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, they thought it was funny. They liked it. So I figured, you know what? If they find it funny and they like it, why the hell do I stutter now? Shit. Why don't I invite them to the comedy club at Hot Comedy Club? And I always tell people that I tell the story to, if you don't believe it, because it's an unbelievable story, you could always ask Francisco, who now works at Lots of Laughs. Actually, I have a lot of comedian friends. I think they know it's true, because number one, some of them were there, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And number two, a lot of them know Francisco, and I've always, over the years, brought like a few people as a joke, like, hey, Francisco, right, this really happened, right, it's a true story, and he'll always say yeah. So if you guys have any doubts about the story, just ask Francisco, now at Lots of Laughs Comedy Club. So I said to them, I said, hey, would you guys like to come see me tonight perform at Hot Comedy Club? And sure enough, without getting into a long story, I'm sorry I'm talking a lot already, guys. It's very hard on me because I'm seeing these views go down. It's very hard for me to continue. So sure enough, they got off the train with me. They said yes. Very surreal. I'm walking through Times Square with Chuck Norris. I mean, how sick is that, People are looking at him and, because now when he's in Times Square, he's not on the train. I guess then he's more recognizable, whatever, People recognized him. They see me with him. Maybe I'm a star too. They don't know. It was a real crazy, surreal thing. And we're walking through Times Square. And I don't remember exactly word for word, but I do remember that he was giving me advice about, staying true to the calling and the craft and how Bruce Lee discovered him, etc., yada, yada, yada. And anyway, we get to the club, and I remember playing a joke on the booker, who was, Cisco. And I said, hey, this is my dad. He's coming to see me today. And right away they laughed. They said, that's not your dad, that's Chuck Norris. And the wife and the bodyguard. So they put me on first because obviously Mr. Norris and Howard Jackson and them had to leave. I did pretty good. I did good that night. But I think I already made them, I already made them laugh on the train. So, I think they already liked what I was doing, but I did good in the comedy club as well. And then I came outside, all the comedians were going crazy. They're like, I can't believe Vinny A.O. barked in Chuck Norris. So technically, I barked in Chuck Norris. Remember I told you guys how I'm a barker? So that's pretty crazy. I barked in Chuck Norris off the train to come to a comedy show with his family. How nuts is that? You know what I mean? If nothing else, right? So he comes to the show. All the comedians are going crazy. They can't believe I did that. So I go outside the club, and it was very surreal. The whole thing's surreal. And the wife says to me, where are the light bulbs? She's imitating my comedy. You can tell they liked it. They enjoyed it. They're about to get in the cab. And all of a sudden, Howard Jackson, if you guys look him up, howardjackson.net, he was a famous kickboxing champion. And I didn't know until then. And he was the bodyguard of Chuck Norris. And him and Mr. Norris had a production company called Top Kick Productions. So he pulled out the card and they said, hey, this is our company, Top Kick Productions. Please keep in touch. We'd love to come see you perform again. We like what you're doing. We work with Bernie Mac. At the time they worked with Bernie Mac. This is back in 2002-3, I believe. And it was a big deal for me. It was huge. And they wanted to come see me again. They wanted me to keep in touch. They were happy with the performance. It was all surreal. They get in the cab. And all the comedians were like, yo, Vinny A.O., you did it, congratulating me. It was, when I went home that night, I gotta tell you, I was, they say cloud 9. I was on cloud 9,000. I was on cloud 9 million. I mean, can you imagine? You're performing already, your dream is coming true, at least to you. You're barking, you're performing every night. And then on top of that, you meet this celebrity who loves your stuff, comes to the show, and they give you this card, Top Kick Productions, and they want to work with you. They want to keep in touch, and they want to come see you again. I mean, you have no idea. I mean, I went home like flying, and that's an understatement, flying. And I know I have that song, fly while I walk while I fly. So I was flying. It was one of the best days of my life. Besides, it sounds cliche, give my life to Jesus. And last year when I passed the America's Got Talent audition in Brooklyn, that's a whole nother story. Maybe perhaps I'll share that another time. That was a big deal. But that was one of the biggest days of my life. Making them laugh on the train, getting them to come to the show, getting the card. It was a very surreal, crazy, awesome day. But you know what I'm realizing right now? I didn't even think about it. Both of them have one thing in common. The America's Got Talent story where I passed in New York, and this story with Chuck Norris. They both led to tragedy. I'm not going to get into it, be sidetracked, but the great audition in New York, the best day of my life, getting past the New York audition, led me to LA, which led to great humiliation, and I sabotaged it. And this, I'll continue with the Chuck Norris story. I meet Chuck Norris, and then, I kid you not, 3-4 days later, while I'm looking at the card every day, I'm thinking, when am I going to call? When am I going to call? When am I going to call? And I don't know if this ever happened to you, like in your own way, but you ever got like a big connection or met a girl, I know it's not the same thing, and you just don't call because you know that you're going to call eventually, and you're just happy that you have that chance, and you're just waiting for the moment, and you're just enjoying that moment until you make that first step. Well, I was in that limbo, if that makes sense, for like 3 to 5 days. I don't know exactly. I had this card looking at it, Top Kick Productions. My life's going to change. I made it. I don't know if I was thanking God, and that's just the point, perhaps. I don't even think I believed in God. And if I did, what kind of God? Like a Catholic God? It wasn't like And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget. I don't like going into too many details because I do have family members that could be watching. And they don't like when I get into too many details about my dad either, and neither do I, and it is getting late, and I don't want to share too much I already have. But this next part, maybe I should end here. Perhaps I will in a minute. So thank you for listening. But to conclude, because I know a lot of you may be thinking, well, what happened with that connection? What happened with Mr. Norris? So I at least have to give something, even if I don't go into too much detail. And this next part, I think many of you know this. So to those that already know the story, perhaps that's why there's only 9 viewers. Because a lot of people are coming on here going, we've heard the Chuck Norris story, and they know that this next part is pretty tragic, and it's not fun for me to share, and it's tough. So I'm going to try to share it as short as possible for those that haven't heard it. So within about 3 to 5 days of this connection with Mr. Norris and Top Cake Productions and Howard Jackson, within 3 to 5 days of this, I'm at my grandma's house with my uncle, my aunt, and we're all there, and my grandma, and we're in the living room. I don't know what day it was, why we were there, but we just happened to all be at my grandma's. I kind of grew up going to my grandma's. That's a whole nother story, maybe I'll get another time, Italian family. And my dad, he worked as a dispatcher at a car service on Bay Parkway. Those you Brooklynites, Bay Parkway and 65th. It was called Bay Parkway Car Service. And he was working there a couple years. And I remember I used to go there, hang out with him, even had some stories with him there. And he was a dispatcher. And, dispatcher, he dispatched the cabs. And this is the part I don't know how much I should share or want to share or even could share. So bear with me. And I'm going to try. God, please give me wisdom. He definitely had a temper. He was a very loving man. I love my dad. He's been there for me, but he also had a very bad temper. And a lot of people say it's mental illness. In fact, anyway, and he was at the time trying to do his own thing on the side. He was trying to make dances. I don't want to get into too much information, but he was trying to make dances where he'd rent out a hall, get a DJ, get music, get the food, and then put out the flyers, pay the hall, and then make money back on the admission. And I don't want to say they never worked out, but a lot of them were just not successful. And he did one, and he hired a cook. I don't want to say too much, I already am. And this cook, in other words, my dad pretty much, from what I know, said to the cook, you guys can see me right now. Richie's saying the video stopped. So I'm sorry about that. Before I continue, I just want to make sure you guys can see me. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you guys can still hear me? Thank you for listening, by the way. So, I don't want to keep on talking if the video really stopped, because Richie's saying the video stopped. So can you guys still see me? Okay, good. So my dad paid somebody like $200, and from what the story I know, my dad pretty much told the guy, here's $200, go buy a bunch of food and cook it. He was a cook, and bring this food to the the hall where my dad's doing the dance. And from what I know, the guy came and had barely any food or nothing at all. So pretty much the guy took the $200. I don't know if this guy was a connected guy. I don't know how much I should get into. It's another thing. I got to be wise here. But he pretty much conned my father. He took the money and he didn't do nothing with the food. So my dad, not to justify it, he has this issue. One day, the story is, actually before this, I remember one day I was on the bus with my dad, and I saw this guy at my dad, and the guy kind of threatened my dad. He says, I'm going to have you taken care of, because they were having words, they were fighting. And I remember, I'm not proud of this, but I spit in his eye, and I said, who are you going to have taken care of, my dad or the guy that spit in your eye? And then I think after that incident, the guy was walking by where my dad worked as a dispatcher with his girlfriend or a girl, and my dad totally bugged out on this guy and totally snapped. And I'm sorry if this is taking too long, and this is very hard for me to share, and I don't even know if I'm sharing too much or too little. And my dad was like, you piece of crap, how dare you con me, screaming, blah, blah, blah. And then this guy pretty much got 4 guys, the story is 4 guys, broad daylight, to go to where my dad worked as a dispatcher. How funny is this? I'm sharing the most tragic part of the story and a whole bunch of people left. It's all good. I don't even want to share this part of the story. It's all good. And they went to where my dad worked as a dispatcher, and they pretty much, beat him down to the point of left for dead. And when I was now going back, I'm at my grandma's house. I'm at my grandma's house, and the phone rings. And I'm getting to that, Richie. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm not good sometimes with stories. I get sidetracked. I don't know if I'm sharing too much. It's hard for me. I apologize. Thank you for listening. I'm going to try to narrow it down. It's getting late, too. I'm at my grandma's, and and then I see the viewers go down. I feel like this is baloney. I'm sharing something from my heart. It's very, very, I don't know what the word is, but I says, valuable to me. Valuable is not even the word. Worth something. I don't know what the freaking word is. But I guess this is a big part of my life, so to me it means something. So if I share this and then I see people leaving, not that you have to stay, it just kind of makes me feel like crap, but it's all good. I get this call at my grandma's house, and and they said, "Are you related to my dad's name?" I don't want to say it, And I said, "Yeah, who's this?" And they said, the cop said, your father's been assaulted. I said, I'm the son. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track here. They said, do you know Natale Pirelli? And I said, yes, that's my father. I'm the son. Who's this? They said, well, your father's been assaulted. And I'll never forget, my heart jumped. That feeling you get, like out of your skin. And of all the people to pick up the phone in the house, why me, right? But it was me. And me and my uncle got in the car. My family went to the hospital. Get there, he's in ICU. He's unconscious. His face was literally like maybe 5 times the size of what he normally looks like. I don't know how to describe it. Just like if you guys ever watch a horror movie, Michael Myers or something, when he takes off his mask, just like swollen, like bigger, like 5 times the size. And hold on, people are trying to call me as I'm telling the story. Maybe they're telling me it's too much. Who knows? I don't know what's going on, so I got to narrow it down. That's why, guys, I don't know how much I'm supposed to be sharing here. And I just remember seeing not only his face swollen 4 times the size, but I remember seeing, I guess they bashed his head in with boots. And I remember in the ICU room, the unconscious, the imprints of the boot were indented in his forehead. And that was psychologically very hard to handle. To see your dad breathing like that, unconscious, 4x the size, with footprints indented in his head. To be honest with you guys, it was almost like he died for me. Even though he was still technically alive, to me it was like he was dead. And it was devastating on you don't know how many levels. And nobody in my family wanted to go in the ICU because they even took one look at him and they almost wanted to throw up. And I, would stay in there and look at him, and I don't think it was good for me, but I did, and it was my father, and I was crying, and pretty much it made me a madman. I'll get down to the basics. It made me a madman. I didn't have God in my life. I was young. I was already messed up before I gave my life to comedy at the time, right? And there you go. That's the long story short. I became a madman, and literally became a madman. People that know me back then know it's not an exaggeration. I literally just started shrinking like a crazy person every night. I met bad people. I went around with hammers and screwdrivers looking for the people who did this to my dad. That's a whole nother story. I ended up finding one of the guys. Thank God I didn't hurt him, but I did find him. And that's a whole nother story I don't think I should get into. Look, people are getting out of here, so. My father eventually woke up, thank God, within 4 days. That was the miracle. He got out of the ICU. But he had to go they said his mind would never be the same, and he's been slow for years. And he had to go to rehabilitation for 4 months. Not just go to like outpatient, but inpatient. He was staying in a hospital for 4 months, barely able to speak, barely able to say a word. Barely knew who I was, barely knew who anybody was. And even the doctor said he'll live, but his mind will never be the same. They damaged his brain. And I got involved with very bad people. They manipulated me. But it was my choice. I wasn't well. The people I got involved with, it's a miracle that I didn't want to get into that I'm still here and nothing crazy happened. But yeah, I got involved with very bad people, and they convinced me during this dark time that comedy wasn't for me. Chuck Norris, all that was bullshit, and they were giving me speeches about jail and how jail, when you go to jail, it changes your life. When you come out stronger. And I pretty much just, between being mentally crazy with all this stuff and these people I met, I didn't care about comedy. I didn't care about Chuck Norris. I didn't care. All I care is that my father got messed up. I want to find who did this. And I became another person. Actually, I feel bad. I don't know if he's watching. There's a kid, well, he's a man now. He used to do comedy with me back in the day as Vinny. And one day I went to the city with these guys I used to roll with. And he saw me and he's like, Vinny. And I was like, I didn't even want to imitate it. It's pathetic. I said, I'm not Vinny. I'm Tony. They used to call me Tony. They even changed my name because my middle name's Anthony. And, it was really pathetic. I took the comedian. He said, are you Vinny? And I said, I'm not Vinny. I'm Tony. I took him. I threw him on the ground. And even my friend, a good friend of mine, Eddie, for years even told me, you just weren't the same person. It was very hard to be. I was not the same person. I became a monster. And it's a blessing, now that I think about it, I was able to escape that situation. And that's a whole nother story to not get into right now. And so, getting back to Chuck Norris, by the time I got out of this whole mess and escaped, my dad got out of the rehabilitation. I know this is going to sound cliche, and I'm still dealing with it to some extent today, but my mind became mush. My mind was like so messed up that it was like me and my dad got beaten. Me emotionally and him physically. And that's the best way I can describe it. I don't know if that makes sense. From everything I went through, meeting these people, getting involved with these people, leaving these people, what happened to my dad, this whole thing, the things I got involved with them, it just totally made me different to the point when I left, literally, like, I was just like, duh. And I'm not even exaggerating. Duh. Like, I literally, like, couldn't even, like, put a sentence together. And that's legit. People that know me know it's true, and I know it's true. And not only was I out of comedy now, I fell out of the comedy clubs, I met bad people, this whole thing happened. I never called Chuck Norris. Let's just say I picked up the phone, which I'll get to in a second. What the frick am I going to say? Hey, Mr. Norris, you remember me? I mean, maybe I should have. I met you 6 months ago. Hey, a whole bunch of shit happened. I don't really have any comedy show. I couldn't even talk like that. Guys, it's really hard to explain. I was so out of it that I couldn't even put a sentence together. I'd probably be like, hey, yeah, I'm not performing, but yeah, I just wanted to. That's how I was talking, because I was doing some bad shit I want to get into. So you guys, it sounds like a made-up story. It's so bizarre, but God knows it's true. I know it's true. It's crazy. It's hard to talk. Thanks for listening. So one day, I did call, I did call the number. I did. And I'll tell you guys what happened. I called. There was, I think it was like in August. I had met them that previous November. It was almost a year. My mind was mush. I was all messed up. And I finally called. And Howard Jackson picked up. The bodyguard, that's, the partner of Top Kick Productions. And he was very pleased to hear from me, from what I remember. He was very pleased. And I don't remember exactly, a long time ago, but to some extent, I think he said, it's great to hear from you. It's been a while. Mr. Norris talked a lot about you. And I don't remember where Mr. Norris was, but Chuck Norris. For those of you that are just joining now, this is a very, very bad time to be joining in when I'm ending the story. People be like, what? What's he talking about? Lose his mind, call Chuck Norris. But then again, I'm sure if you guys know my life and been on Facebook, you guys have heard the story already. So I called the number up. He's very pleased to hear from me. I could barely say a sentence. My mind was so mush. And you have to understand, I was very, very fast. Very fast. I was quick, not just in the comedy clubs as Vinny A.O. Anybody I meet, girls, that's how I got girls. I'm not saying I was ugly, but and now I went from that to barely be able to say a word. So even if I wanted to go back to the comedy clubs, I couldn't. I wasn't the same person. So I called up. He said, we think about you. Mr. Norris always tells people about that day. And it turned out that he got sick. He went to the hospital. I don't know if it was the first time I spoke to him, maybe the second, I don't remember. He got sick, Howard Jackson. He had to go to the hospital in LA. If you look it up, look up Howard Jackson. It's all there, what happened to him. It's a true story. And I remember talking to him in the hospital before he died. And what's crazy is I didn't know Jesus back then, but I come to find out years later, and we'd be here for hours if I told the whole story. Turned out that Chuck Norris was a Christian. And now, moving forward, I'm a Christian. I had no idea he was a Christian. I had no idea that Howard Jackson was a Christian. You know what I mean? So I remember before this guy passed away in the hospital, him telling me about God and how he had faith and he wasn't afraid pretty much of death. And it was a very surreal moment because here I am, my mind's all mush, I'm messed up. I call him up and he's telling me how pretty much he's dying, I could tell, but he's not afraid. And then he died. Well, I don't want to say he died, he went on with the Lord. I didn't know the Lord back then. And then that's it. The connection disappeared. I don't know how else to say it. The connection just disappeared. I guess after that, it was weird. I called the number maybe a couple months later. I remember this lady named Mary White picked up. She didn't know who the heck I was. Maybe she thought I was crazy. I don't know if she even passed on the message. And maybe I tried a few more times and that's it. And over the years, people have tried themselves. From recently, I was on that show back in March with Anthony Cumia Network. The guy said he's going to try to find Chuck Norris for me. Friends have looked into finding Chuck Norris. I've messaged his agent. But I was never able to get back in contact with him. And it's weird because all this tragedy transpired and all this stuff happened. And that's what led me to Jesus. And that's where I'll conclude. And this is why this whole thing is wild. Because this tragedy led me to Jesus. And then it turns out that these people knew Jesus. But yet I can't find them, but that's another story. So if it wasn't for what happened to my dad, and if it wasn't for everything that happened with the people I met, and the things that happened in my mind become like mush, yeah, I would have became a comic somewhere. I'm sure Top Kick Productions would have worked out. They would have helped me out in some way. I'm sure performing every night in those clubs, I would have became something, right? But the question is, and it sounds cliche, and it's really tough for me, I'm not going to lie. Here I am 13 years later, depressed with nothing. You think it's easy for me? But you know something though? I wouldn't have known Jesus Christ. Or, who knows, maybe eventually, but I doubt it. And a year and a half later, during this hard time in my life, having absolutely nothing, no education, my mind is mush, hurt, feel isolated from the world, came so close to making it. My dream, I was living my dream. And in the midst of living my dream, it looked like my dream, that's, what can I tell you? God's not about making our dreams come true. Yeah, that's what I feel. He's about make us know him.